The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Amber Valley for the 35th and final time. We are finally completing this district. It seems like it's been an absolute age since I started it, and I've left the best until last. Behind me there you can see a massive tall mill building. That's East Mill, which is one of the several mills you can find in and around the town of Belper. Belper, beautiful retreat. Finally, after what seems like a very long time, the Amber Valley series comes to an end today. We have one left and I've saved the biggest and best until last. This is Belper, about 8 miles north of Derby. It's a town and a parish with around 21,000 people. The name Belper is usually linked to the old French Beaurepare, meaning beautiful retreat, given to a medieval hunting lodge here in the 13th century. Some older writers suggest Bel Pere, which means beautiful stone, which describes the local gritstone. There are mills and railways in these parts. It's classic Derbyshire, but before all that, this was forest country. Belper lay within the great Forest of East Derbyshire and later Duffield Frith, the royal hunting landscape of woodland, deer and rough pasture. In the Domesday Book, this area appears as the manor of Bradley or Bradley. The survey notes a modest holding with villagers, smallholders, slaves and a priest, offering us a glimpse of scattered farms and a small church presence on a hillside above the Derwent. After the conquest, the land formed part of the estate of Henry de Ferrers and was ruled from that great Norman castle at Duffield. Later, the manor passed to the Earls of Lancaster, and centuries on, the Strutt family became the new industrial landlords through their mills and their housing. If one landmark sums up Belper today, it would be Strutt's North Mill beside the river. Rebuilt in 1804 with an iron frame after an earlier mill fire, it's a pioneering fireproof cotton mill and a key part of the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. We certainly need to see it. However, Belper has far more. Here you can stroll through Belper River Gardens with their bandstand and Swiss tea rooms, then climb towards Belper Park's local nature reserve, once part of an old deer park. St Peter's Church and the older St John's Chapel are worth seeing too. Local people defined this place. Jedediah Strutt and his son William developed the mills and the model housing. George Herbert Strutt later gave us the river gardens. Earlier, generations of nailers worked in hundreds of small workshops, giving Belper Town Football Club its nailers nickname. Duffield Frith and the old deer park inspire loads of stories that locals still know of today. Along the river, people talk of mill workers walking home at dusk and of poetry trails threading through the parks and gardens, giving words to place in memory. So Belper brings together a forest and a river, nailers' yards and world-famous mills, with chapels, churches and riverside gardens chucked in for good measure. Land, industry and everyday life sit side by side in this Derbyshire riverside town. For the final time in Amber Valley, let's go.
Good evening, everyone. I've got loads to do today. Belper is huge, so I'd better get ready. I'll be all over this episode, and here's where I'll be joining in. Surely this is too much. I should ask for a raise.
Let's get this trip through Belper started by having a look at some of the smaller hamlets that surround the town. Here we're driving into a place called Makeney. It sits just to the southeast of another small village called Milford. Both used to be very industrial. In 1554, Burchard Cranich built the first smelt mill here, designed for extracting lead from lead ore. By 1581, Sir John Zouch of Codner Castle set up a wire drawing works at Makeney too. That followed the spread of new wire drawing methods brought to Derbyshire by German specialists. One such German was Christopher Schutz. The wireworks helped form an early metalworking base in the Derwent Valley. A description written in 1817 states that Makeney was listed in the Domesday Book as one of the manors held by Henry de Ferrers. It later became part of the manor of Duffield. At the centre of the hamlet is the lovely Makeney Hall Hotel. This originated as a farmhouse in the early 1800s. It was eventually bought by Anthony Radford Strutt, known to the locals around here at the time as Mr. Makeney. He rebuilt it as a far larger house. The house later passed to George Herbert Strutt and Edith Adela Strutt after their marriage. They raised 5 children during their time at the hall. The Strutts were well known in Belper and Milford, and their work in public life is well recorded in local histories. Edith died young, whilst George remarried Mary Emily Charlotte Hind the following year. After that, the hall went through a period of renovation. Now, the Victorian mansion is occupied by a hotel with bedrooms, dining rooms and event spaces, but its historic structure is still in place. Makeney also has a pub. This is the Hollybush Inn, which is located on Hollybush Lane. It's a Grade 2 listed pub and it was built in the 17th or early 18th century, placing it among the oldest surviving inns in this area. The building is also on CAMRA's National Inventory of Historic Pub Interiors, which marks pubs with interiors of special historic interest. Local accounts state that the inn was once visited by Dick Turpin during his travels, although the validity of that claim can be debated. In recent years, it's gained attention for its real ales and its pork pies, both of which have been praised in press pieces and by Derby Camera. In fact, this was named Derby Camera Pub of the Year in 2007 and later received further praise from beer writers, including Colston Crawford in 2015. Now we're in Milford. There are several things of note here, and somewhere near the top of that list would be this pub. This is the King William, a stone-built Georgian inn which stands at the foot of some sandstone cliffs close to the River Derwent. Just like the Hollybush in Makeney, historic features survive inside this building too. Camera notes original period furniture and quarry-tiled flooring, dating from the time that the inn was first built. A wood-burning stove is also a long-standing feature. The pub has been part of Milford life for years. Modern listings record regular live music, quiz nights and themed food nights, including pizza on Thursdays and a monthly bistro evening. It serves up to 6 cask ales with beers such as Abbot, Landlord, Draft Base and Abbeydale Daily Bread. We'll be seeing this thing a few times today. It's the River Derwent. So from the King William, we're going to cross this river and head towards this.
The defining feature of Milford would be the Milford Mills complex. These began with Jedediah Strutt in the late 1770s, when he built his first cotton mill beside a stone bridge that crossed the River Derwent. The early mill buildings grew fast, with cotton spinning underway by 1782. He added a new warehouse in 1792, and the east wing, later built in 1805, would go on to carry a tall clock tower that became a well-known local landmark. The river powered the whole site, driving the machinery that kept the spinning and bleaching works moving each and every day. A works bell from 1791 still survives beside the mill stream, whilst the Grade 2 weirs on the river still flow, explaining visually how the water was controlled. 2 wheel pits and the base plates of an 1826 suspension bridge remain as other reminders of the scale of the Milford site. Textile work ended here by the late 20th century, although one of the later mill buildings was used by contractors in the early 1990s. Parts of the former mill area have now been redeveloped, but this bend in the river will always be remembered for the huge structures that once dominated it.
Okay, just opposite the road from the Milford Mills complex, you've got another pub just there. Now this pub goes by 2 names. It's not just one, it's 2. And I'll explain why next. Not far from the mill complex we have another pub. Milford isn't short of those. This is the Elephant and Peacock and it stands on the A6. It operates inside a Victorian building long known beforehand as the Strutt Arms. It might be the Elephant and Peacock now, but its current form links directly to the historic Strutt Arms site. The Strutt Arms was reopened as the Elephant and Peacock after a change in operators. The hotel rooms above the restaurant still trade under the Strutt Arms name. The Elephant and Peacock runs as the pub, and because of that it's kind of like a 2-in-1 sort of business here. The venue has 11 rooms above the restaurant, and the place has had a long run of positive reviews for its food, its service and its rooms. Milford Primary School stands on Chevin Road. It occupies another Grade 2 listed building. The structure dates from the late 18th or early 19th century, and it appears in outline on something called the Strutt Survey of 1797. The building was created as part of the Milford Mill complex, and as such it's physically attached to the former workers' houses on Chevin Alley. The lower floor was once used for Strutt wagons, while the upper floor served as the school. It's made of coarse stone, a slate roof, paired sash windows with cast iron glazing bars, and a stone porch with a panelled door and a fanlight. The building also has large cowl ventilators on the roof, a feature which was linked to its early school use. So on the wall of the school here we've got a map of Milford which shows all kinds of things about it. We're not going to cover all of this because we haven't got time, but you can see we have something else called the Beehive there. Feel free to pause the video and read a bit about that. There's something called Stevenson's Tower, which is on Sunny Hill here. I know there's a Baptist church which is somewhere in that direction. Don't know whether it's on this map or not. Also on this map you can see there's a bit about the marketplace. Once again, feel free to pause the video here. You can see Milford's quite a strung out place. It's not a circular village by any stretch of the imagination. It can't be because the Derwent running through it like this, there's only really one way across it, this bridge here. So we've dealt with this kind of area here. Now I'm going to head back to the car and take you up to Holy Trinity Church, and that's one of the things I also want to put on the map here before we leave Milford behind.
Holy Trinity Church in Milford was built in 1848 on land given by the Strutt estate. It was designed by William Bonathan Moffat and consecrated on the 26th of July that year. The church cost about £2,500 to build and was set out in the early English style. It has stone walls, a west porch and a small turret that holds one bell. It could seat about 500 people, which suited this growing mill village beside the River Derwent at the time it was built. In 1905, the church gained a new pipe organ made by Bevington and Sons. That instrument was later sold to Australia in 1994. It was replaced by an older organ from Belper Baptist Church, built in 1874. In 1909, the church was extended to add a vestry and a room for parish use. Holy Trinity stands very close to the old mill cottages that now form part of the Derwent Valley Mills area. Its raised position means it can be seen from the A6 as traffic passes through the valley. But seeing this from the outside is now all you can really do. The church closed for worship in 2021 because the upkeep had become too costly. The final service took place in September that year. Its future is still uncertain, but the building remains an important part of the village's past.
I'm sure you guys noticed the war memorial in front of the church there as well. Very, very big, tall cross with a roll of honour on the wall behind it. We will be seeing a bigger war memorial, and a war memorial garden in fact, in Belper itself when we get into Belper. So, next up, we need to head for another small hamlet called Farner Green. On the way, there are two more things I want to cover here in Milford. One of them is Chevin Golf Club, which stands above the village on the Chevin Ridge. It was founded in 1894 as a 9-hole course designed by William Lowe. Fellow professionals James Braid and Tom Williamson took part in its launch. The course later expanded to 18 holes. Its own history notes that early planning took place at Courthouse Farm. That had an old court building which included a lockup used for prisoners. The 13th hole, today called the Gibbet, is the closest hole to that lockup site. The club formed its first ladies' committee in 1908, led by Mrs. Catherine Sayer. Later, lady golfer Joan G became one of its best-known members, winning the English Ladies' Championship in 1951. Between Duffield and Belper there's a railway line. We know that already thanks to the Duffield episode from ages ago. It's the Midland Main Line, and it was built originally for the North Midland Railway. Where it passes through Milford, it runs through a tunnel. The tunnel runs for 856 yards under the Chevin. It was the second longest on the North Midland Railway when it was completed. Historic records note that the tunnel was once described as the longest in Britain. It's not now though. Both portals are listed structures. The north portal is the most distinctive. It's a Saxon-inspired arch built from 7 concentric rings of stone. Somewhat less impressive in comparison, the south portal uses the standard North Midland design. There's a sighting tower above the midpoint. Now we're in a place called Farner Green, just outside Belper. This doesn't have a lot, but it does have a pub called the Bluebell. It trades as a country pub and restaurant with a covered garden, 2 regular cask ales, and food served regularly. It might look like it's in the middle of nowhere, this one, but to be honest, that helps it. Farner Green Road, where it sits, is reached by a walk from Belper involving a climb uphill. Walkers love that challenge, and therefore they are rewarded with a pint at the top if they attempt it. Between Farner Green and the next hamlet called Bel Pere End, there's a really good example of a well dating from the Georgian to Victorian period. This is the Dally Wash, a long, narrow roadside structure divided into 3 sections with a field wall curving around the back. It was probably at first a simple well, later altered when Dally Lane, the road this sits on, served as a turnpike. At some point, double steps and extra stonework were added, though the exact purpose of those is unknown because no documents survive for them. The wash fell into disrepair in the late 19th century and went out of use in the late 1920s when piped water reached the area. Local residents began clearing debris in 2009, helping to expose the surviving stonework. It's a small feature, yes, but one that should be well looked after. Now in Belper Lane End, we have 2 things to discuss here. This is St Faith's Community Hall, which began life in 1890 as a small stone school chapel built for £304. It was set up as a chapel of ease to Christ Church in Belper itself and was used for the religious teaching of local children. It served local residents under the guidance of the Sisters of the Convent of St Lawrence and the Vicar of Christ Church. The diocese closed it in 2005, which led residents to form the Friends of St Faith's group. They held events to draw attention to its future, including a harvest festival in the field opposite. The building was then bought by Caroline Foster, who later surrendered her interest in it, and in 2014 it was sold to a group of residents who turned it into what it is now. There's another pub here. This is the Bull's Head, which stands at the junction of Belper Lane and Dally Lane. It's an old coaching inn, once used by travellers on the turnpike Wirksworth to London Road in 1794. It's one of the older roadside inns in the area. The building dates from the 18th century and still trades on the same site today as it always has. In recent years, the Bull's Head has been refurbished and now operates as an independent pub with a good food service, plenty of parking and a lovely garden. The present team runs it as a dining pub with a snug, a bar area and a restaurant. Although the modern offer is different from its coaching inn past, the link with the old coach route and its survival as an 18th century inn make it one of the most enduring buildings in Belper. To get into Belper from here, we have to pass through an area called Mount Pleasant. This sits on the western side of Belper, and by default, it's also on the western side of the River Derwent. The road running through it is one of the older routes climbing out of the town. Mainly, Mount Pleasant is a residential area, but what makes it appealing is the fact that from your car, you do get some of the best views going of Strutt's North Mill. We'll cover that in a few moments. Let's park up at the Talbot to get this main walk going. Oh, well, as we say up north, it's starting to get a bit warm now. So the jacket's gone, the leggings have gone, the trousers, tracksuit bottoms, whatever you want to call them. I'm down to my shorts. It's a nice, beautiful sunny day, and it's time for a walk around Belper. And we're beginning here outside the Talbot, which I mentioned a moment ago. There it is. Let's get this walk going. This area is known as Bridgefoot. On the western side of the river here, there's the Talbot. Across the 19th century, the Talbot appears in trade directories as a steady local inn with a mix of farming, victualling and lodging roles depending on the landlord. This has been recorded as an inn from at least 1828 when John Frost was listed as the publican in Pigot's directory. Later records show a long run of licensees through the 1800s, including David Kidd in 1842, Isaac Slater in the 1850s and 1860s, and Isaac Smith in the 1870s and 1880s. Mary H. Allsop was listed as the licensee in both 1925 and 1932. It later became known for Armando's, a Mediterranean restaurant based inside the inn. Today it remains recognised for its historic fabric and its long record in Belper's pub history. Opposite the Talbot we have Beaurepare Garden. In some circles this is sometimes called the Lost Garden of Belper. It was once linked to an old cottage hospital on the other side of the road. There's a photograph that exists of it, dating from around 1905. It shows a man in a wicker bath chair with a nurse beside him, confirming this land was once the hospital's garden. Local photographer Pete Davis discovered its past when he was asked to reproduce the old photograph. After realising what the land had been, he bought part of it. Then he arranged a lease for the rest so the whole area could be restored, because at the time it was very overgrown. Erewash Groundwork Valley took on the restoration project. Work began in February 2004, and 6 weeks later the garden reopened with new paths and new seating areas. Okay, so opposite Beaurepare Garden there's something called Calder's Corner, which is where I'm standing right now. This has got a little picnic bench and a few nice shady spots under some trees. You also get this beautiful view of the River Derwent and a weir, and behind that weir is Strutt's North Mill. Amelia, what have you got for us about this?
In much the same way as in Milford, Belper itself had mills. There can be no question that Strutt's North Mill, standing beside the River Derwent, is one of the most important early industrial buildings in Britain. The first mill on the site was built in 1786, but that burned down in 1803. Fire was a risk that was common in the cotton mills of that time. However, here in Belper, it wasn't to be the end. William Strutt rebuilt it in 1804, using an iron frame and brick vault floors to reduce the danger of fire. His design became something of a model for modern iron-framed buildings. North Mill is a hugely impressive building. The mill has 6 floors, brick walls on a stone base, and an empty wheel pit that helps explain how water once powered the machinery. Inside, iron beams and brick arches still support the floors, showing how carefully the structure was planned to resist heat. Large parts of the wider Belper Mill complex were removed in the mid-20th century. However, North Mill survived and would go on to become a museum. In fact, the mill is now part of the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. Visitors can walk through the building today and see how the Strutt family developed new ways to make cotton spinning safer and more reliable. Reports in recent years have noted the need for repair work to protect it for the future, but North Mill remains Belper's biggest and best landmark.
Now, what might not be immediately obvious is there are actually 2 mill buildings there. There's North Mill, which is the better known because of its fireproof status, but the bigger, taller building, that's East Mill, and that's the one that you get the best view of as you come down through Mount Pleasant and into Belper. So, passing the mills, we now need to go under this little archway, which is connected to the mills, by the way. You can see there's a tower that says East Mill, 1912 on that. Under this arch and through something called the Triangle, and we're on to Belper's main street. Close to the Triangle, which we've just walked through, there's a church. This is Christ Church, and it was built in 1849 to the designs of Henry Isaac Stevens. It was consecrated on the 30th of July 1850 by the Bishop of Lichfield and Coventry. Grade 2 listed and built in an early English style with a bellcote at the western end and a set of lancet windows along the sides, this is one of the most important religious buildings in this town. A vicarage was added to the south of the church in 1857, also designed by Stevens. In 1878, the interior was restored. Varnish was removed from the roof timbers, the walls and the ceiling were painted, a screen was added, and the floor was lowered by 5 inches. That work was funded by George Herbert Strutt, who also supported other things in the town. Now that church gives its name to the sports area that's behind it. It's called Christ Church Meadow, although it does go by another name, as you can see here, Belper Meadows. Belper Meadows, and this is where you can find all the sporty features of the town. You can see we've got bowls, we've got cricket, we've got hockey, and we've got tennis. I'm going to cover all of those, but I'm also going to primarily cover football, because this is where Belper Town play.
Belper Town Football Club began in 1883 and soon made an early mark by reaching the first round of the FA Cup in 1887. The club would join the Derbyshire Senior League in 1890 and later became champions of the Mid-Derbyshire League in 1904. Financial problems forced the club to fold in 1912, but it returned in 1951 and took up residence at Christchurch Meadow, where it still plays today. The 1959 season brought success with the Central Alliance League title and the Derbyshire Senior Cup. They later won the Midland League in 1980 and continued to move through the non-league system. Today, the club plays in the Northern Premier League Division 1 Midlands, which is the 8th tier of football in England. Ian Woodward is the current chairman and Lee Attenborough is the manager. The Christchurch Meadow ground has grown over time. The club bought it in 1986, added new dressing rooms in 1999, and opened a new stand in 2003. Floodlights were upgraded in 2014, and the ground now holds around 2,000 spectators. You would perhaps think that a milling town like Belper would lead to its football club being nicknamed something like the Millers, but that's not the case here. Instead, Belper are the Nailers. It comes from a long nail-making trade in this town, something else that shaped Belper.
I'm sure you've noticed there that the stadium is actually called these days the Rhaegar Stadium. It's a sponsorship thing. It's always been Christchurch Meadow as far as I'm concerned though. Now, let's have a look at these other sports. So we're going to go past the football club towards where all the others are played. The football club isn't the only sports club that sits on Christchurch Meadow. Next door we've got a tennis club inside the grounds of Belper Meadows Community Sports Complex. The club has 5 courts, 3 hard courts with floodlights and 2 grass courts. The club runs structured tennis activity through the year, including league matches against other Derbyshire clubs, a ladder system with several divisions, and coaching sessions for adults and juniors. It also has a junior tennis academy, which focuses on player development. Belper's bowls activity is also based here. The local bowls club, an active side with regular fixtures, play in the Belper and Mid Derbyshire Bowls League. The club also runs annual events such as the Belper Meadows Open Doubles. You want more sports? Okay, I'll give you more. How about Belper Hockey Club? This was founded in 1908 and today fields 8 men's teams and 6 women's teams, with both first teams playing in the England Hockey League Division 1 North. Ladies hockey began in the 1920s. The club was started by Gordon Wright, a schoolmaster at Herbert Strutt School. Old match reports describe players repainting white cricket balls after each game because they stained easily. It's played for most of its history at Christchurch Meadows. A major change though came in 1997 with the installation of an AstroTurf pitch. That was due to the Derwent causing havoc with the grass pitches thanks to flooding. The upgraded pitch later helped the club host the National County Championship in the year 2000. Belper Cricket Club was founded in 1892 and also plays at Christchurch Meadow. This ground has been far more than just the home of Belper's local team though. It's been host to Minor Counties Championship games, Second 11 Championship games and the Second 11 Trophy. Belper themselves fields 3 senior teams and 8 youth teams competing in the Derbyshire County Cricket League. The ground has been used for cricket by them for well over a century. They have practice nets and a pavilion at the site. Now we're heading down Bridge Street, and this is a great road for a pub crawl. There are loads of pubs in Belper, and at one time there were an incredible number that lined this very street. One of them is the Georgian Dragon, a Grade 2 listed former Georgian coaching inn. Standing at number 117 Bridge Street, camera describes the building as having a front portico and a deep interior. It serves 1 regular beer and 3 changing cask ales, with draft base as the regular option. The pub also runs 2 beer festivals each year and also offers accommodation. A skittle alley and garden stand at the rear, reached through an archway beside the car park. The pub's own website states that it's traded for nearly 200 years. You could easily spend a lot of time in this pub, but there are others we'll see as well. Next though, we have the Belper Community Hall, which stands at the rear of the Hollies, number 105 Bridge Street. This operates as a local venue run by a registered charity. It has a main room with a sprung dance floor, a kitchen, step-free access, Wi-Fi, parking for 8 cars and a small garden. You can think of this as sort of a village hall, even though we're not in a village. Dance groups, fitness classes, theatre rehearsals and private functions all take place here. It also hosts live music at set points in the year. Now this should not be confused with the Strutt Centre. That's coming later. You're never short of a place to park here in Belper. It seems a lot of these private areas, like at the sports club and at the Hollies there, they actually use their car parks for public parking, provided you actually pay for it as well, of course. So yeah, I don't think you're ever going to be short of a place to park here in this town. Let's continue down this road. Next, we've got another pub. Just behind me there, it's the Lord Nelson. Back to pubs. The Lord Nelson at 78 Bridge Street traded as a beer house from at least the mid-1800s. A modern description notes that the building was a 2-storey stone pub originally called the New Inn before taking the Lord Nelson name in the 1820s. The pub has since closed, but its long list of recorded keepers and its early 19th century origin place it among Belper's older licensed sites. Pub history records list Joseph Walker as the beer retailer in 1857 and 1862, with further entries for him in 1870 and 1874. In the 1890s, the licence had passed to a Mrs. Martha Banks. Census records from 1891 place her at the pub with her daughters Sarah, Martha and Agnes, along with a young servant. In 1901, the keeper was John K. Davis from Macclesfield. That one might be shut now, but this one is still very much open. It's the Rifleman's Arms, one of the largest pubs in Belper at 72 Bridge Street. It has records going back to the 1800s. It was earlier known as the Volunteer Arms. Modern sources describe the Rifleman's Arms as a black and white pub on the A6 offering cask and craft beers. It stocks beers primarily from the Dancing Duck Brewery. It's got a traditional layout with a bar to the left, a lounge to the right, and a smaller room with a pool table at the rear. In 1870 and 1874, the keeper was William Ligate, born in Idridgehay, and living in with his wife Elizabeth and a young servant. In 1901, the licence had passed to Samuel Bunting, a widowed beerhouse keeper from Belper. Belper Baptist Church is also on Bridge Street. This dates from the 1890s. According to the church's published history, Baptist meetings in the town began in 1817 when the Duffield Baptist group hired a room at the Georgian Dragon for worship. The first chapel in Belper opened by 1820, built on land given by a Mr. Hardy. By the 1870s, that earlier chapel was too small, and plans for a new building were drawn up in 1877. Land on Bridge Street was available, and so it was bought for £518. The foundation stone was laid on the 7th of August 1893, and the new chapel opened in 1894. It was designed by S.R. Bakewell of Belper and built by an A. Hingley of Duffield. The cost was about £2,700. Gothic in style, most of its rock-faced stone came from Darley Dale. Next, we've got the Dyson Barrel, which some folk may have known as the Scrannon Barrel. This is at 56 to 58 Bridge Street. It took over the site previously known as Bangin' Belper, which itself had followed an earlier phase as the Belper Tap. The Scran and Barrel offered food from Thursday to Sunday, including Korean dishes and barbecue plates. It also stocked a mix of craft beers, 2 cask ales and 3 ciders. In 2025, the venue changed management and became Dyson Barrel, ending the Scran and Barrel name. The building remains a shop conversion bar space on Bridge Street, whatever you want to call it. Here's a fun fact for you. This one hosts regular board game events. You don't see that in every corner of the country. The Devonshire at 71 Bridge Street is a Grade 2 listed pub with origins in the late 1600s or early 1700s. It's built in ashlar stone with quoins, a slate roof, stone mullioned windows on the first floor, and a later bow window added at ground level. The building was previously known as the Duke of Devonshire Inn and has traded under different forms across its long life. The modern pub may operate under the reduced name, but inside it's the same as it always has been for more than 300 years. We've got one more pub to see in this section, but before we get to that, we have Riversdale Surgery. This operates as a GP practice, serving about 14,000 patients. It works from this purpose-built premises and runs under a general medical services contract. The practice is run by a partnership of 8 GPs who are supported by a salaried GP, a registrar, a nurse practitioner, 3 part-time practice nurses and a part-time healthcare assistant. The site also houses the local nursing team. And now we reach the Lion Hotel, another Grade 2 listed building dating from the early to mid 1800s. This one's distinctive because of its rendered frontage, painted white, with full-height pilasters that use a local Greek quay design. The modern business trades as the Lion Hotel and operates as a hotel, a bar and a restaurant. It has 22 bedrooms. The bar and restaurant were refurbished recently with a new pizza oven installed. Well, you'll need food after all that beer on this stretch. More pubs coming later. There you go, there's a surefire way to know that you're at the Lion. A carved lion out of wood in front of the building itself. Now, next door to the Lion, there's a petrol station. I'll just show you this here. And then there's a road off to the left that we need next, because we're heading for a different type of station now, a railway station. Now, you wouldn't necessarily know that Belper's railway station was even here, because it's almost hidden underground. I'll show you how in a moment.
Belper railway station sits inside a deep cutting that was carved in the 1830s after the first planned route through the town proved unsuitable. George Stephenson surveyed the line for the North Midland Railway, and trains finally began running through Belper in 1840. The first station stood at the southern end of the cutting and was designed by Francis Thompson in an Italianate style. It served passengers until 1878, when the Midland Railway opened a new station further north inside the cutting, closer to King Street. The old station then became a goods site. The present station has 2 platforms reached by ramps, with a booking office at street level above the cutting. The long cutting itself is a listed structure. It's crossed by 11 bridges in the space of a mile. Creating the cutting wasn't easy. The engineering works required to make it were costly at the time, but the benefits were immense. It allowed the line to pass through the centre of Belper without disturbing the mills that depended on the River Derwent. Today, the station is managed by East Midlands Railway and remains in daily use. Passenger numbers have risen in recent years, which is against the national trend. Whatever the numbers though, it'll be a while before this station ceases to serve the town from its dramatic position within the cutting.
So you see what I mean about it being almost underground here. If I just show you where the line goes, we've just walked over the line. You see there's a tunnel, and that runs under the town centre. That building there is the local Poundland. Goes right underneath that, and then obviously heads out towards the likes of Milford and things like that. Okay, next for us, we're heading, I think, this way. Now we've reached Green Lane, which we'll touch twice on this walk, but you'll have to stick around until the end for the other part. On this bit though, we have the old schoolhouse, which has long been recognised as the second oldest building in Belper. It began as a Unitarian chapel in around 1721. When the newer Strutt Unitarian Chapel opened on Field Row further up Green Lane, this building was extended and used as a Sunday school from 1855 onwards. After its time as a school, the building took on a series of newer roles. It was used by Roby's fireplaces, for example, until they moved away. Nonno's, an Italian restaurant, then occupied the site before relocating to Strutt Street. In 2021, it even became a pub. Local research also notes that Green Lane itself once had earlier names, including Meeting House Lane. And you could probably tell it was a pub because of the sign that said the Old Schoolhouse Inn on it, with a picture of a lad there at a school desk. Now we're coming towards King Street, which is the street you can see behind me there. There are two things which are actually both in shop there behind my shoulder. One of them is a cinema called the Ritz, and the other one is the War Memorial Garden. But King Street has got a lot more to it than just those two things.
King Street is probably these days Belper's main shopping street. It's got countless shops and businesses, but it also has the Ritz. This was originally Belper Public Hall. It was built in 1882 for £3,500. It was built for the Public Hall Company and was used for things like court hearings, a library, theatre events and public meetings. Film screenings started in 1919 using a rear projection system. In 1935, the building was changed into a full-time cinema. Haynes Builders carried out the work to alter it, adding a raked floor and a balcony. It had a 22-foot proscenium and used a British Thomson Houston sound system. It reopened under the name Ritz Cinema from then onwards. Both this and the Palace Cinema, elsewhere in the town, were run by the Morley family. By 1954, both the Ritz and the Palace were operated by Star Cinemas of Leeds. In 1971, the Ritz was turned into a twin-screen venue. Soon afterwards, the stalls were turned into a bingo hall, and the two small screens operated in the Old Circle, each with 75 seats. Silverline later took over and closed the cinema in October 1991. Then it stood unused, until new operators reopened the building in 2006.
It's a bit different these days because the whole building is not the cinema anymore. It's been divided up a little bit. You've got the cinema, which is this bit on the end here, and then you've got a bingo hall in the middle, this middle door, and then at the end there's a framing shop, a picture framing shop. So it's kind of a 3-in-1 now. Okay, let's head into the War Memorial Gardens, which is literally just next door. I'll just keep the camera rolling a second so I can show you these awesome gates. There we go. There's the gates of the garden. Let's go in and have a look. Just up the street from that cinema, we've got the War Memorial Gardens. These sit on a plot of land once known as the Paddock. That man, George Herbert Strutt, donated the land in the early 1920s. After the war, the gardens were laid out with lawns, flower beds, trees and benches. The gardens have a shelter and metal gates on stone pillars. A metal arch above the entrance carries the inscription War Memorial Garden. At the centre is the Belper War Memorial, an unpolished granite obelisk on a 5-stepped base. It lists 226 casualties from World War I and 71 from World War II. The gardens were later designated as a centenary field through a programme run by Fields in Trust and the Royal British Legion to mark the First World War centenary. Belper Town Council is responsible for the site today, and surveys in recent years have recorded it as well cared for. Now for a walk down the rest of King Street via the Greenhouse. This is on the corner of Green Lane, which kind of explains its name. It's a stone gate pub and it's modern, sitting above a row of shops. It's reached by steps leading to a paved patio. The inside has a large open plan room with a long bar along the back wall. It's often noisy too. Think of it as like a Wetherspoons, even though it's not one. 4 hand pumps are usually present with beers such as Abbott, London Pride, Pedigree, Sharps Atlantic and ciders from Lily's. The site itself has an earlier history. It's built on part of what was Green Hall, a house built in 1810 for Jedediah Strutt. Green Hall was demolished in 1956 and the area later became a car park before it was a pub. Later archaeological work in 2002 uncovered parts of the old house. Always amazes me how many buildings have been repurposed. On the end of King Street you can see one such example. There's a chiropractor's, but this used to be a bank, and you can tell just by looking at it that it was a bank, can't you?
The first bus service in Belper began in 1904, but the first garage didn't open until 1912. That served Belper until the company, Midland Red, replaced it with a new depot in 1962. The new site had a workshop, a wash bay, a fueling station, a waiting room, and even a cafe. The new features made it a much more modern base for local bus operations. Midland Red continued to run the depot until 1986, when Trent Barton took over and kept the site in daily use. The depot today holds around 50 buses and supports routes across Belper and nearby towns such as Ripley, Heanor and Derby. This is the depot which houses the Sixes service, which we've seen several times in the villages around Belper. They run between Belper and Derby. Here's a fun fact for you. The Six's buses run every 6 minutes at peak times. That's how they get their name.
No buses in there at the moment, it's a bit empty, but I'm sure there will be plenty in there later. Now, directly opposite the bus station, there's a footpath, which I'll just show you what I can see here. There are two buildings, one on the left, one on the right. One of them is a Methodist church, the other one is connected to that Methodist church, and I'm going to tell you how. This next section is all to do with the Methodist church. On your screens here is the Belper Community Cottage, which stands in the grounds of the Central Methodist Church on Chapel Street, opposite the bus station on the A6. It's an old stone building that was the home of the church's caretaker. The idea for the community cottage began in 1990 with Liz Reeve, a member of Belper Methodist Church. Reeve worked with people from other local churches to set up a place that would welcome visitors without any formality or barriers. After a long effort, it opened to the public in 1995. The cottage has 4 meeting rooms arranged with either easy chairs or tables and upright chairs. The room can be hired for small fees. There's also a quiet room suitable for counselling. A small garden sits beside the building. Visitors may use that for relaxation. Belper Methodist Church itself dates from 1807. It replaced an earlier chapel that stood just to the north on the same street. That first chapel was linked with Thomas Slater, a local preacher who gave the land for it in the late 18th century. The 1807 building is a large stone chapel in a Georgian style. Early maps mark it as the New Methodist Chapel. White's Directory of 1857 recorded that it could seat about 1,400 people when it first opened. A schoolroom was added behind the chapel in 1841, with usually around 100 children present. The building has a symmetrical ashlar front with a pedimented centre and a Tuscan porch. Inside, the gallery on 3 sides survives from the original layout, though other parts have been modernised. The church is Grade 2 listed. If you go up the side of the Methodist church using the footpath that's near it, you'll end up at the local Aldi. This sits on the edge of the town centre's retail area with direct access from the main A6. Mapping records place the store on the site from the early 2000s. That makes sense because at that time Aldi were expanding across Derbyshire with new mid-sized stores. Aldi itself began trading in the UK in 1990. Belper's store originally followed what was a standard layout used across the chain: a single floor, a straight central aisle, and group sections. In terms of supermarkets, Aldi is not alone here. Morrison's stands close by, almost on the same plot of land. The supermarket is a full-size branch with long opening hours. Current listings state this is open from 7 AM to 10 PM from Monday to Saturday and 10 AM to 4 PM on Sundays. As a full-size store, it includes a cafe, a petrol station, a bakery, a butcher's counter, a fishmonger, a salad bar and a hot food section. It also has Amazon lockers, electrical vehicle charging bays, Coinstar machines, a photo booth and a recycling point. Standard Morrison stuff, really. Now, if you visit either of those supermarkets in a car, you have to pass this. This is the Flying Geese sculpture, and it stands on the traffic island at the junction of the A6 and the A609. It was commissioned by Belper District Council as a Millennium project, and it was installed in 2000. The sculpture was created by a metal artist called Paul Margate, a man known for large steel works across the UK. It's made from steel and stands about 5 metres tall. The design shows a pair of geese in flight. The idea came from the bird life found on the River Derwent. The plinth beneath the birds includes carved or cast symbols linked to Belper's industrial past. They include a cotton reel, weaving shuttles, a water wheel, and nails linked with the old nail-making trade. It's a landmark that everyone sees when travelling into Belper from Milford. I'm sure you've noticed around the place, as well as things like banks that have been turned into something different. Some of the old mills now are repurposed. We passed one a moment ago up here, which I believe is some sort of antique centre now, just on the other side of the geese sculpture there. And then here on this corner we have Brook Mill, which is being turned into apartments.
Babington Hospital is a huge building that dominates the southern section of Belper's main north to south street. This originated in 1840 as the Belper Union Workhouse. It was built on something called Babington Meadow and was designed by George Gilbert Scott and William Bonathan Moffat. The workhouse cost £8,700 to build and was constructed from local Derbyshire stone. It was intended to hold up to 300 people, or inmates as they were locally termed. Mostly, these were people who were destitute. A suspicious fire damaged the building in 1841, only a year after it opened, but the site continued to grow regardless, with a large infirmary added on the western side in 1889. The eastern courtyard, built in a Jacobean style, remains one of the most distinctive parts of the site. The layout seen on early maps still matches the surviving structures today, and several ranges are now listed for their architectural and historic value. In 1930, the workhouse became the Babington House Public Assistance Institution, and in 1948 it joined the National Health Service. At that point, it was renamed Babington Hospital after the meadow. It's now managed by Derbyshire Community Health Services.
Okay, so at the pedestrian entrance to the hospital, you've got one of these things. I saw one of these earlier, I didn't think much about them, but I'll show you what they are. There's like a little cog, and under it there's a QR code. If you scan that QR code, I imagine it tells you a bit about the place you're at. Obviously this one's about the Union Workhouse, because that's where we've just had a look at. I wonder if the place over the road has got one of these things as well. Amelia, what's this?
Opposite the hospital, we have something called the Strutt Centre. This was built in 1908 as the Herbert Strutt School, designed by Hunter and Woodhouse, and funded entirely by the man it's named after, George Herbert Strutt. The building opened in 1909, with the Duke of Devonshire leading the ceremony, and a Mr. Tunnicliffe appointed as the first headmaster. The school soon expanded, gaining a new block in 1914, and later becoming the Belper Higher Elementary School in 1936. The structure itself is notable for its Jacobean style, stonework from the Strutt quarry, and a centre block topped with a small spire. Mullioned and transomed windows, gabled wings, and an embanked garden above Derby Road give the building a strong architectural presence. During the war in 1940, evacuees used the building in the mornings, while Belper pupils attended in the afternoons. That's not the only time the school changed roles. It did that several times, becoming a middle school in 1973 and a primary school in 1986. When the school moved to a new premises, ownership passed to a social enterprise. In 2009, the building reopened as the Strutt Centre. Today, run by volunteers, it's a lesser-known part of the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site.
Now, Strutt School still exists. It's on a different site, a more modern site, but we won't see that on this walk, and we won't see it on the drive around, which I'm going to do later to end this video. It's kind of a bit out of the way and wasn't really easy to put in either of them, but just know that Strutt School is still a thing. Now, in terms of the walk, we're about halfway around now, which seems incredible considering we've covered so much already. Next, we're heading for the tavern. We don't have to go very far. It's there. Just after the Strutt Centre now, on Derby Road, we come to the Tavern, one of the longest running pubs in the town. It's described usually as a wet-led pub with a strong focus on beer and social activity, and it's built a loyal following over time. After this, things start to get a bit more spaced out. After walking through some rather twisty and windy lanes that seemed to go on forever, we found our way to St Swithin's Church. This church began after a Church Army van mission in the town at some point in or around 1909 or 1910, led by Captain Jesse Ford. Ford's work drew strong local support, and the vicar of St Peter's Church, Reverend Stuart Harrington Clark, agreed that Ford should stay on as a permanent officer. At first, Ford held services in various locations, but he needed a purpose-built church. He got it thanks to Elizabeth Hanson. Hanson's late husband had been a director at Brettle's Hosiery. She paid for the entire church in her husband's memory and also funded St Swithin's house for Captain Ford's family. The dedication to St Swithin was chosen because her husband had been born on St Swithin's Day. We're now about to pass through Belper Parks, but before we do, we have the Manor Recreation Ground which sits on the edge. Amber Valley Borough Council records state that it forms part of the Belper Parks area, but lies outside the boundary of the local nature reserve that the parks actually are. As a recreation ground, it provides play equipment for children aged 12 and under, along with space for informal activities. It's one of the places included in something called Beth's Poetry Trail, and as such, there's a poem set into the steps leading up to the site. So now we're in Belper Parks. This is primarily a nature reserve located behind the marketplace. It was designated as such in 2004 after work between the council, the Groundwork Trust and the Friends of Belper Parks. It covers woodland, meadow and lots of old farmland. Coppice Brook runs through the site. The brook once supplied water for the town, and its route can be traced from Ripley all the way to the River Derwent. Otherwise, the land was once part of the Royal Forest of Duffield Frith. In the 13th century it served as a deer park. In the 16th century, timber from the area was felled for ships during the Armada. By the 17th century, it had become common land, and in 1786 it was enclosed and divided into fields, with Manor Farm and Park Farm both created at that time. Definitely the hardest part to navigate so far, this, because this area is completely loaded with footpaths that go in all directions, and you need to know which footpath you're on as to which direction you want to go in. I'm on the right one here. This will take us to a street called the Fleet. It's downhill as well, by the way, if you're wanting to walk this entire route. Just be careful. So when we reach the Fleet, we will be just a few steps away from Belper's Marketplace. After exiting the parks, we're now at the Old King's Head on Days Lane. It's another Grade 2 listed pub with a coarse stone front, coped gable ends, stone mullioned casement windows, an off-centre doorway and a late 18th century rear wing. It's a Marston's pub. It has a compact interior formed from what were once 2 small rooms, with a small bar and an upstairs room used for events. The pub is noted for serving Marston's Pedigree, Wainwright Gold and other beers from the same group. Next we have the Spiritualist Church, which meets regularly at the Jubilee Hall, number 5 New Road. This is one of the oldest spiritualist churches in the UK, founded in 1887. Meetings first took place in the home of W.P. Adsheads, and the present building was named the Jubilee Hall because it was built in the year of Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. The foundation stone was laid by Adsheads himself. Right, now we're in the marketplace, and in a moment Amelia will tell you a bit more about it. However, first, there's a couple of pubs to cover. The Cross Key stands at number 35 Marketplace. It's an early 19th century pub with 2 rooms divided by a central bar. It has outside seating to the side and the rear. It was once a bateman's house, but it was refurbished in March 2024 and is now run by the Pub People Company. It serves up to 4 cask ales, including draft base, and hosts regular events such as Tuesday Quiz and live sport. One name that often comes up in the lists of former owners here is Coates. The Coates family appears repeatedly through the 19th century with entries in Glovers, Freebodies, Whites, Harrods and Wrights directories. Later names include the Skinners and the Millers. Also in the marketplace is the Black Swan at number 44. Early documents list this as the Swan Inn, with the first known entry in Pigot's directory of 1828 and 29 naming Thomas Hamersley as the publican. Through the 1830s and 1840s, the pub was run by Samuel Ward. By the 1850s, the business was operated by Cox and Malin, who were listed as wine and spirit merchants, so clearly the pub had diversified a bit. This is confirmed further in 1881 when the pub was renamed the Black Swan and Spirit Vaults, run by Cox & Co. Modern reviews on pubs galore describe a building reached from the marketplace with a bistro-style interior and a small range of cask beers such as Marston's 61 Deep, Falstaff Phoenix and Hobgoblin Gold. Seems to be a few of these things around the place. This is the second of these ducks I've seen so far on this walk. I wonder what they're about, I've no idea. At the bottom, there's a notice that says, "Please do not climb, let's keep the ducks quacktastic."
Belper Marketplace is more than 200 years old and remains one of the most recognisable parts of the town. Early photographs of this from the 1890s show traders, stone buildings, and a busy square, giving a sense of how long the area has served local trade. The marketplace grew alongside the rise of the Strutt mills, and together both helped turn Belper into a thriving market town. Historic shops still line the edges of the square, and the layout seen in those old images is still easy to recognise today. The square is paved with stone sets and framed by brick and stone fronts. A tall lamp on a stone base stands near the centre, and narrow streets feed into the space from several sides. Those features mean the marketplace doesn't really need any additional decoration. It's characterful. A farmer's market takes place here on the second Saturday of each month, with green striped canopies filling the space and stalls selling produce from across the Amber Valley and beyond. Food fairs and seasonal events also use the square, keeping it busy throughout the year.
You see this here? This is number 26 marketplace, and it's called Angel House. I would put good money on that, formerly being a pub called The Angel, but it's not anymore. There is a pub close by though, the Nag's Head. The Nag's Head now, which you can find at number 5 High Pavement. This has been recorded as a working pub from at least the mid-1800s. It was founded by 1857 and brewing took place here until 1971, after which the building became part of the Mansfield Brewery Company. The pub has carried Mansfield signage in the past, reflecting its former ownership. It operates as a Marston's pub today, with a bar area that still keeps a dart's throw to the left of the entrance. The building includes an old cottage frontage, which was later extended. It has 5 hand pumps with beers such as Pedigree, Hobgoblin Gold, Old Empire, Ringwood Razorback and Jennings Cock-a-Hoop, all known to have been served in recent years. The Nag's Head is among Belper's best documented historic pubs. Okay, so we've just come through a lit gate there into the grounds of a church, but this isn't actually a church, or not anymore anyway. This is St John's Heritage Centre, and it's the oldest building in Belper.
St John's Chapel is the oldest surviving building in Belper, dating from around 1250 and built by William de Ferrers. It first served the foresters of Duffield Frith, offering a place of worship close to their homes. The chapel began as a simple rectangle with a nave and a chancel. Later it gained a porch in 1634 and a bellcote in 1699. A gallery was added in 1806, before the building was restored in the 1870s, when the window openings were returned to their earlier form. The chapel is built from local Chatsworth grit, giving it a distinctive colour range. Inside are several rare features, including a pre-Reformation altar table, a medieval piscina and a sedilia, and roof beams dating from 1700 and 1704. Those details help explain why the building is Grade 2, listed and considered one of the most important historic structures in the town. Today, the chapel houses the Belper Heritage Centre. The western end is used as the town council chamber, while the rest contains displays curated by the Belper Historical Society. It's a great place to learn about Belper's past, in a setting that has stood for more than 700 years.
Okay, from one church to another, and it's not the one you can see on the horizon here. That's for later. There's another church just on this corner here. Now, this one has a connection to Ilkeston, and it also has a connection to Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire. There's another church not far away. This is the Belper campus of the Arena Church at 16 High Street. The Arena Church network began expanding across Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire through the 2000s and 2010s. Arena Church developed multiple sites after its original base in Ilkeston grew, adding further locations in Mansfield, Nottingham and Belper. Arena's outreach arm, Arena Community, operates food provision, supported accommodation and school uniform help across its towns. Here, operations are led by David and Jeanette Blythe, who moved to the area after working in Milton Keynes, where they ran a counselling and support charity focused on addiction work. David had also served as a pastor and an elder at Milton Keynes Christian Centre. Now, do you remember the Ripley episode from a few months back? There we saw Heege Windmill, and you'll recall how I mentioned it was rare to find one of those in Derbyshire. Well, Belper had one too. It stood on Windmill Lane above the town. It was built in 1796 as a tower mill, and early records describe it as almost new in 1801, with 2 pairs of stones and a dressing machine. A photograph of it taken before 1891 shows a short brick tower with 3 floors, an OG cap, a fantail, and a mix of 2 common sails and 2 spring sails. However, that same year, all the machinery was removed and the tower was turned into a house. The converted building is still occupied today. In its time, this mill had a flour machine and a drying kiln. It must have been quite a prosperous windmill in all. As we've seen, Belper does have a fair amount of open green space. Here's another area that fits that bill. This is the 3-cornered wreck. It's a triangular recreation ground that lies close to St John's CV Primary School and another small green known as Acorn Wreck. And also not far away from the 3-cornered wreck is another little open space. This is Crouch Lane Festival Garden. It was created by the former Belper Urban District Council as part of the Festival of Britain plans in 1950, 1951 and 1952. Council minutes from 1950 record the first discussion about marking the national event in some way, and this led to £250 being set aside for this project. 2 months later, the council agreed that the old Crouch Lane refuse tip would be cleared and the site would be used for a new garden. 3 designs were submitted. The chosen scheme cost £685, with the extra £435 taken from the 1951 and 52 budget. Plans were also made for a special entrance with 2 stone piers and wrought iron gates, costed at about £130. Heading back down into the marketplace now, you pass 2 more pubs on the Chesterfield Road. This is the Queen's Head, a building which sits within a terrace on the edge of the town centre. It retains 3 of its original 4 rooms. They include a snug on the right with bench seating, a quarry-tiled bar on the left and a lounge at the back. The pub once had 2 off-sales hatches, an unusual detail that still survives in the structure. The central servery remains in place, though the bar counters were replaced in 1990. In 1871, the keeper was Samuel Wood. Later names include Robert Bradley, Adrian Thornton, George Armson, John Hobson and Edwin Barlow. Today, the pub is known for its rear room library of sporting books and a patio garden with a view over Belper and the Chevin. And then just over the road we have the Thorntree Inn. Historic pub records note that the address of this place was listed as Field Head until at least 1899. In 1871 the innkeeper was Elijah Morton, aged 60 and born in Duffield. Later records list keeper names like Braithwaite, Peat and Walker. By 1901 the keeper was John Alton, aged 29 and born in Hege, with further entries for him in 1912. Edward Tomlinson was recorded in 1925 and 1932. Today, the pub is an independent house serving base and a changing range of real ales. It reopened under new ownership in 2018 and has since been a finalist in Amber Valley Camera Pub of the Year competitions. It also won the 2019 Amber Valley Camera Winter Ale Trail. I don't know whether you've been able to tell, but there's been quite a few hills involved since the marketplace, and now we're coming downhill again back into the town centre, so hopefully, fingers crossed, there's no more uphill sections. Now behind me there's a wall. Behind that wall is the vicarage, which means we're not far away from a church, and we're not, because the church is right here behind these trees.
St Peter's Church has been a major landmark of Belper since its foundation stone was laid in 1822. The church seats around 750 people and continues to serve the religious needs of Belper's townsfolk today. The building opened in 1824 and was designed by Matthew Habershon using ashlar stone from Hunger Hill Quarry. Its Gothic style, its tall tower and its large interior galleries reflect the scale needed for a fast-growing industrial town. Its tower rises to 100 feet tall, and the church originally carried pinnacles that added to that height even more. Inside, the nave and the chancel form the main layout, with galleries on 3 sides and an east window of 5 lights. The organ, installed in 1853 in the West Gallery, is considered one of the most important historic instruments in Derbyshire. It has 3 keyboards, the latest added in 1873. The graveyard outside closed to burials in the late 19th century, but a garden of remembrance remains open for ashes.
Okay, so at the bottom of the hill, just before it hits the town centre again, you've got another pub. It's called Belper House. I didn't find out much about this one, so this is as good as you're going to get, I think, to be honest. Now, we're on the final stretch at this point, because now we're heading up towards a congregational chapel and then a Unitarian chapel, which has a major link to Jedediah Strutt. We're heading towards the end of this main walk now, but there are still a few bits to cover. On Green Lane we come to the Congregational Church, another Grade 2 listed building. It was completed on the 13th of November 1872. It was designed by George Woodhouse of Bolton, an architect usually known for large industrial buildings. The contractor was a Mr. Cash of Duffield. The 1872 church replaced an earlier chapel from the 1790s, which had been extended in 1817. That first chapel stood on the same site. It was later demolished to make space for the new building. The new church was built in a French Gothic style with local stone, a 120-foot spire, a nave, some vestries and a west gallery. A schoolroom was added in 1899, built partly from material taken from the earlier chapel. So unlike the congregational church that you've just seen, this Unitarian chapel is very, very well hidden away. In fact, you probably wouldn't even know it was here unless there wasn't a sign on the road that pointed you towards it. You have to walk up this very narrow street here. Now, this chapel is just here. You see where these railings are? This is the chapel here. Now this, believe it or not, is where Jedediah Strutt's grave is.
Sticking with the religious theme, there's a Unitarian chapel on Field Row. This was built in 1788 by Jedediah Strutt, the very same man behind the cotton mills. You see, Strutt wasn't just all about the mills. He was a religious man, and he adopted the Unitarian faith after settling in the town. This chapel replaced an earlier meeting place used by local dissenters, with the congregation itself recorded from 1689. The building is Grade 2, listed and made from ashlar. The original structure was rectangular, with the entrance at the southern end. Above the doorway is a gallery entrance dated 1788, reached by an external cantilevered stone staircase. Inside, the chapel has a south gallery, box pews and cast iron pillars similar to those in the north mill. So, I guess you could say, this is just as fireproof. 2 wings were added around 1800, enlarging the chapel to 3 times its first size. One of those wings was built directly over Jedediah Strutt's grave, which lies in the catacomb beneath the building. The vault contains 32 compartments, though most of them are empty. A clock made by John Whitehurst of Derby survives from the original chapel and still hangs on the gallery. The adjoining chapel cottage was built soon after the main structure and uses part of the vaulted space beneath the chapel as its kitchen.
It never fails to amaze me just how religious some of these industrialists were. And on the religion theme, we're still not quite done with it in this area, because the next thing on our list is also something religion related. There's a convent of, well, it's kind of a convent, and a school which is attached to said convent, which is at the top of this road up here. St Elizabeth's it's called, and that's directly opposite Belper River Gardens. This is St Elizabeth's Catholic Academy on Matlock Road. It's part of the St Ralph Sherwin Catholic Multi-Academy Trust, which it joined when it became an academy on the 1st of September 2018. You may recall the trust from previous Derbyshire videos like New Mills. The school teaches children aged 4 to 11 and has space for 210 pupils with 172 on roll. Its religious character is Roman Catholic under the Diocese of Nottingham. This has long served the Catholic population of the town. Almost at the end now, here's Belper Fire Station on Matlock Road. It's run by the Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service and operates as an on-call station, meaning firefighters are paged when needed and must reach the station within about 5 minutes of receiving a call. The station covers Belper and nearby places such as Bargate, Openwoodgate, Blackbrook, Milford, Holbrook, Netherhege and Kilburn. It's staffed by 1 watch manager, 2 crew managers and up to 14 firefighters. Belper has 1 fire engine plus a prime mover vehicle that can carry either a breathing apparatus support pod or a welfare pod. The welfare pod includes chemical toilets, hot water hand washing and space for changing clothes. And finally, before we go driving to complete this video, here's Long Row School. This stands at the foot of Long Row, and arguably it's the street here that's more interesting than the school itself. You see, Long Row was historically mill workers' housing built by the Strutt family. The school opened in 1818 as the Long Row Mill School, built by George Benson, William Strutt and Joseph Strutt. The school was designed to teach children linked with the cotton mills and used the Lancasterian system, where one teacher instructed large groups with help from older pupils. Before this building was put up, the first schoolroom used by the Strutts was in the attic of North Mill, but rising numbers meant a purpose-built school was needed. This was it. It was later purchased by the school board in 1887, and now it's a modern primary. Now there's one more main feature for Amelia to cover in this episode, and that would be the Belper River Gardens, which are right next door to East Mill.
Belper River Gardens were created in 1905 on an old osier bed beside the River Derwent. That was after Herbert Strutt gave the land to the Belper Boating Association. A boathouse opened in July 1905, and the gardens themselves opened on Easter Monday, 1906. The layout was designed by Pullum and Son, who added paths, a promenade, some rockwork features, and a bandstand that still stands today as a Grade 2 listed structure. The gardens otherwise include lawns, flower beds, and long riverside views. A themed play area within the grounds explains the town's mill history, whilst the restored Swiss tea rooms serve food and drinks to visitors who come and experience them. In the early years, the gardens were used heavily by mill workers, but now anyone and everyone can enjoy them. After several changes in ownership, the site is now managed by Amber Valley Borough Council. It's since won Green Flag status and remains one of the most visited outdoor spaces in Derbyshire. Boating runs from mid-May to mid-September, and summer concerts take place at the bandstand.
So now we're off for a massive drive around the eastern side of Belper, which will see us take in several landmarks in one go. Belper is hugely residential on this side of town, but in between all the houses there are bits we should cover. St John's C of E Primary School is one of them. This is a voluntary controlled Church of England school with links to the Diocese of Derby. It teaches children aged 3 to 11 and includes nursery provision. It has a capacity of 490 places, and just under 400 pupils have been on roll in recent years. This is Gregory's Way, which is part of an area called Alton Manor, close to Far Laund. It's mainly housing, but with an estate this big, there's no surprise that there are shops. Retail units have been part of the street layout here since at least the early 2000s. It's a small retail row built to serve the immediate area. Property records also note a neighbourhood centre site on Gregory's Way, sold in 2017 for £1.3 million. Alton Manor Day Nursery is on Gregory's Way too. Whitemoor Recreation Ground is next on our travels. This is on Whitemoor Lane and it's run by Amber Valley Borough Council. It has 2 full-size grass football pitches used for adult matches. It has changing rooms and parking spaces, but it's not floodlit. Although an opening date for this ground isn't known, Whitemoor Recreation Ground has been around for quite a while. It sits close to old routes such as Walker Bottom and paths leading towards Bathhouse Farm and Bullsmoor, days when this was all fields and open countryside. Next we have the Greyhound at 17 Whitemoor Lane. This is another long-running pub which can offer you both food and drink. It was fully refurbished in February 2015, 6 years after the present operators took it on in 2009. The Greyhound is very different to the sort of inns we saw back in the town centre. It's a local estate pub and so no earlier historical notes are really available. That's not to say there might not be in some years to come, but as of yet this place is far too young. Two more schools for you next. Pottery Primary School on Kilbourne Road is a Victorian affair, built in 1877. It could cater for up to 444 children at one time, which is an insane size for such a small primary school. It had an average attendance of 390 in the late 19th century. The school is still in use today. It's an open primary school for children aged 4 to 11, with a capacity of 318 pupils and 302 on roll. The school has no nursery classes and no sixth form, obviously, because it's a primary. If your kids are that age, they'll go to our next thing. Belper School and Sixth Form Centre is a foundation secondary school located in the northeast of the town. As secondary schools go, this is larger than average. It caters for around 1,300 students between 11 and 18 years old. The majority of the school is white British, with below average numbers of cared for children and children identified as having special educational needs or a disability. In 2004, this school made national news after a chemical spill occurred within the science department. Iodine crystals were dropped by a teacher when they collided with a student in a corridor. As a result, 2 pupils had minor burns and 36 were taken to hospital for smoke inhalation. Several famous people have attended this school, including the mountaineer Nigel Vardy. The educational theme continues next as we come to the Whitemoor Centre on John o' Gaunt's Way. This is used as part of the Holbrook School for Autism now, which you may remember from the Holbrook video. It was previously used as a daycare centre for adults with learning disabilities. Esteem Multi-Academy Trust, which runs the Holbrook School for Autism, later began using the Whitemoor Centre as a satellite site to support extra pupils. 14 pupils were already based here when the proposal to expand the site was published. Holbrook School for Autism itself opened in 1997 and now operates across these 2 sites, the main school in Holbrook Village and the 14 to 19 department in Belper, which opened in 2016. That feels like we've completed something there. Okay, we have 2 final hamlets left to cover. They are Openwoodgate and Bargate. In Openwoodgate, there's a handful of things to see. St Mark's Church was built in 1891 at a cost of £1,236. It was designed as an Anglican church within the parish of St Peter's. It's a stone church with space for about 300 people. It has a wooden screen between the nave and the chancel, a 3-light east window with tracery, and a pointed brick arch with folding doors leading to the vestry. St Mark's is still active today as part of the parish of St Peter's. The Black Bull's Head is Openwoodgate's pub. It appears in current camera records as a free house that was once owned by Green King. It has 2 rooms, real fires in the winter, and walls covered with old photographs and newspaper cuttings, including a section linked to the RAF. The building was rebuilt in 1901. The interior has been altered since then and now has a refurbished multi-room layout. It serves a set of regular ales such as Oakham Citra, Green Devil, Green King Abbot, Timothy Taylor Landlord, and Thornbridge Jaipur. There's also a Methodist church on Kilbourne Road at Openwoodgate. It was built in 1859 for the Methodist reformers. Late 19th and early 20th century Ordnance Survey maps label it as a Zion Chapel. The Belper Historical Society can add something a bit different here. Their records state that the Zion Chapel was built at the top of Kilbourne Road in 1863 to serve the growing population in this part of the town. Their date appears in a broader survey of Methodist buildings they conducted in Belper a while ago. And finally, we have reached the last landmark in Belper, and by extension the last one in Amber Valley. We have arrived at Bargate, and in front of us here is the White Hart, a 2-roomed pub with real fires and a long record for good beer. This won the Amber Valley Pub of the Year in 2017, 2018 and 2020, and also took the East Midlands Award in 2018. Here's a quirky fact to finish. The cellar in this pub is actually above the ground. That caused immense problems during the long heatwave back in 2022. Well, I have to admit that wasn't the easiest drive I'll ever do in the world. But it's got us to the end of the Belper episode. We're outside the White Hart in Bargate and we are officially finished with Amber Valley! This has been one of the toughest areas I've ever done, and yeah, I'm pleased it's done. It's kind of like a thorn in my side that's been removed now. So yeah, let's get on and finish these other areas of Derbyshire, shall we? Belper stands as the place where everything in the Amber Valley seems to meet. This is where the forests meet the rivers, where the mills meet the railways. It has chapels, churches and long terraces of workers' housing. Shaped by the Strutts, whose rebuilt North Mill of 1804 rises above the Derwent as one of the most important early industrial buildings in Britain, this really is the town where Amber Valley comes together as a whole. What makes Belper feel different from the other 34 is its sheer density of life. Local people defined this place through nail-making workshops, model housing, mills, churches, pubs and sports clubs that grew across Christchurch Meadow. And so, as we leave Amber Valley behind, Belper feels like the natural endpoint, closing the series exactly where it ought to end.
I gaze on the Derwent, where the mill walls rise in line, iron bones and brickwork standing firm by my design. I stand by the Derwent, where the wheel turns with might, brick, iron and river in the morning light. Beaurepare, beautiful Belper, what a lovely town. Through its streets and alleyways I walk up and down. Beaurepare, beautiful Belper, what a fabulous place. I travel around the town with a smile upon my face. North Mill stands steady by the water's mighty flow, a frame of iron strength where my cotton trade would grow. North Mill holds steady where the river keeps its pace, a bold creation built with grit in this strong place. Beaurepare, beautiful Belper, what a lovely town. Through its streets and alleyways I walk up and down. Beaurepare, beautiful Belper, what a fabulous place. I travel around the town with a smile upon my face. I watch the parks above, deer once roam the ground, and hear the nailers craft in every workshop still around. River gardens breathe with color by the weir's curve, old chapel stones keep watch with a timeless nerve. Beaurepare, beautiful Belper, what a lovely town. Through its streets and alleyways I walk up and down. Beaurepare, beautiful Belper, what a fabulous place. I travel around the town with a smile upon my face. North Mill holds steady as the daylight starts to fade. a mark of labor's drive in the town that progress made. Oh, I stand in gratitude for this place and all its trade. Belper strength beside me in every choice I ever made. Ever made. Ever made. Ever made. Ever made. Ever made. Yeah. With Belper's strength beside me, my smile will never fade.
Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.